is use the information that you gain today to help you throughout your career or any other aspect that you can. I also want to thank our generous supporters, who include the Music Business Program at Terry College, Nucci Space, the Sports and Entertainment Law Society, the law firm of Timmons, Warrens, and Anderson, which was very supportive of this event in downtown Athens, as well as Lion Hicks Tap and Jack's Bar. At the end of this event, we will be hosting a musician showcase at Jack's Bar. We invite all of you to attend. Again, thank you for coming, and we invite you to have a great time today. Now I'm going to invite David Barbie, who is the newest and permanent director of the Music Business Program, to come and give you an overview of what we anticipate with your class.
Thanks, Carla. So, welcome aboard. I know a bunch of you, and those I don't, I'm still glad to see you anyway. So I think this thing that's going on today is really cool, and if you don't know, you should know that students in the Music Business Program have put this thing together 100% themselves. This is the first that I've seen of it other than their plans, and I'm impressed. You guys have done a tremendous job. Those of you are in here, those of you aren't here, they've done a tremendous job too getting this thing together. There's going to be a lot of good stuff that goes on today, and when I just looked at the 4 areas that are being covered in these panels, I was thinking that it's all really good stuff, and it's things that are either they're overlooked or tackled the wrong way by a lot of people that want to get in the music business. Building your team. A lot of people don't think about the fact that what you're doing when you're getting these people to work with you as an artist is truly building a team. Either people don't view their group of people they work with, their manager, their business manager, the attorney, booking agent, whoever else they've got involved, they don't view those people as members of a team, but rather just individual satellites. And let's face it, these people need to work together to do their jobs the right way, to do the most they can for the artist, for the art. A worse situation is the opposite, where the team members outside the artist do work as a team, but they're working as a team over here while the artist is over here. And it is important that the artist understand how this stuff works, and that they're ultimately in charge of these people, that the manager isn't the boss of the artist, and the lawyer isn't the boss of the artist, but rather it's the other way around. The artist is in charge and delegates what they do to members of their team. But everybody has to work together. It has to work personally together, it has to work professionally together. The knowledge base has to be right, the experience level has to be right. And so I think with these folks over here and the other chairs that will be filled in a minute, that they're going to get that covered. So the next one, performing rights organizations. There's a big article. Anybody here see the article in the flagpole about PROs this week? A few people? No, read your flagpole. Anyway, it's a really good, it's a pretty interesting look at it, because PROs are widely misunderstood. That what they do is they funnel performance money, which is money from live performance, radio, TV play, or internet streaming, to the songwriter. And there's a lot of confusion about what these things do, how they work, how does the artist get the writer, not the artist, the writer get the money, how do they pay, how does it work, who's getting money, who's not getting money. In the article on the flagpole, there was definitely some contentiousness about the fact that smaller independent artists aren't getting their share of the action. The PROs say that they're working hard to address that situation now and change it to the independent artists are going to get their share of it. And as the music industry shifts from a model that for years and years has, maybe my example frequently is something that's shaped about like this, where there's a tiny handful of people that make a pile of money and then everybody else works with Wendy's, and to something that's going to be a little more like that, where the opportunity is there, there's the outlets of information are there, and PROs, or any kind of licensing, is becoming more and more important. So I think that's going to be a really good one. There'll be one member of ASCAP, we'll have an employee of BMI, and then Pete Guy, who's a music publisher who's based in Athens. And I'll be moderating that panel, so if you hang around, we'll get to see what those folks are up to. Section 3, what's in a name? Branding your band. For those of you who I don't know, my background is as a producer, and I've done this for 25 years. And there have been times where I've recorded bands where I've thought, the music's great, guys are cool, good songs, good live show, except they've got either the worst name on earth, or they have chosen to name their band something very similar to, something that doesn't set them apart from anybody else. And it's important and it's overlooked. And there's the vast sea of band names, artist presentation that are easy to forget. There's a few that are so incredible when you hear them that you know right away. That the first time I heard somebody say Radiohead, it's like, okay, well I knew that Radiohead was the first time I heard it, that was a name that I knew, remembered, stuck with me. Names that have some style of music that the band plays included in the title of the band frequently, it's just, they're a dime a dozen. There's a lot of ways people approach this. But I think a lot of artists get so justifiably and understandably, I think, caught up in the art itself, they sometimes forget about the presentation. And as an artist, you don't want to lose sight of art. That's got to be first. But the presentation is important, and these folks who are going to be on that panel will help you learn about that a little bit. And this fourth one I love, beyond the radio, alternative ways to make money with your music. Who here has ever seen an article, I don't know, like in the last day or so, that says the music industry is dying? Yeah. You know what? I don't believe it. That it is changing. And the reason, the people that are convinced that the music industry is going to hell in a handbasket are the people that are up right at the top part of this. They're terrified because they're older, they have an old way of doing things. And there's a quote that I saw recently by Wilco's website, a guy who said, the record industry complaining about downloads is like the railroad industry shooting airplanes out of the sky. And it's the truth. It's not dying. It is shifting, though. It is changing. The sale of these plastic circles in record stores that are going to become coasters pretty soon, yeah, that's going away. You can still buy CDs and you're going to be able to, but that's changing. And you're still going to be able to hear music on the radio. The way things have existed are going to continue to exist. But there's so many more options now. And I think because it's so much easier to get the word out about what you want to do, that to somebody that's creative and works hard, and also, let's not forget the most important thing of all, that has something of quality to offer, that quality has more of a chance than ever to survive in today's marketplace, I think. There's a lot of ways to do it. They're all changing. And yesterday, Burris Downs made a great point in our class, which was that he thinks that people who are college students now have a tremendous advantage over the rest of us that are not college age, in that you are not hamstrung by a view of how things used to be. People that are 50 are freaks because all they know is how much things are changing from how they were. Well, my mom hated punk rock and Stones, but when I was a kid, that seemed like, to me, I understood it, she did. And it's like, as things change, the opportunity for all of you is much greater than it has been, I think, in the past. I think the playing field is greatly leveled, and to me, that is a great thing. So on that note, I think I'm going to turn it over to Deborah and our first panel. And I hope you all get something out of this.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Deborah Gonzalez, and I'm a local attorney right here in Athens. I'm from New York, so you don't get my accent right now. But my focus area is intellectual property, art, music, and entertainment law. And I have put together a series of pro bono music law clinics at New Cheese Space. And this is one of the impetus and the origins for this conference. This panel is going to be talking about building your team, and we're going to be looking at different aspects. What is that team? Who should be part of that team? And some of the best practices and war stories that maybe some of our panelists can share with us. And I'm going to introduce each panelist. They will then tell you a little bit more about themselves, and then we're going to have some questions that we're going to put forward to them. So to my immediate left, we have David Lowery. He's an artist known as Cracker and also a professor. Oh, I'm sorry, he has a band called Cracker and is a professor here at the UGA Music Business Program. To his left, we have Rasheed, who is the business manager at SunTrust in their sports and entertainment specialty group. So it'll be interesting to find out what does a banker have to tell us about building the team of your music. And to the left of Rasheed, we have Lisa Moore, who is the director of the Georgia Lawyers for the Arts and a good friend to the music business program as well as to UGA Law School. So we welcome all our panelists, and I am going to start at the opposite direction with Lisa. If you can give us a few words about yourself, and then maybe your first statement about building the team.
Sure. Good afternoon. It's always great to be back in Athens. So, as Deborah mentioned, I am the Executive Director of Georgia Lawyers for the Arts, and I also have a private entertainment and IP practice, the Moore Firm. I have been practicing entertainment and IP law day in, day out for going on almost 14 years. And it's a great area to practice in. We love working with bands and composers and actors and writers and all the other creators, content creators that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. We represent a number of independent labels, music managers, producers, so we just do a ton of work in the music space. And, you know, I think that the team is such an important concept for both the emerging artists and the mid-career artists and the established artists. And I think I can sum up my sort of perspective on the team with one proverb, if you will, which is trust in Allah and tie your camel. So, you know, these are very important relationships, personal and professional relationships, and you want to have a trust. At the same time, you want to make sure that you have comprehensive agreements in place to make sure that you are protected with your personal manager, with your business manager, with your booking agent, with your attorney. And so, hi Jonathan, how are you? I'm glad you joined us. You know, I think it's very important to do your due diligence and find out who is on this manager's roster, talk to some of their clients. You know, don't be afraid to ask your lawyer the tough question. You know, and I think most of you would agree with this, there are lawyers out there that say they're entertainment lawyers and, you know, maybe you haven't done that many or any record deals. So you should ask, you know, what is your experience like in this genre or with respect to this label or this type of transaction? I think the other thing artists need to be attentive to is that each member of the team plays a very distinctive role. For example, we get a lot of calls from prospective clients who want us to shop their material. And while some entertainment attorneys do that, that, you know, sort of making unsolicited cold calls to labels and A&R folks on behalf of clients is not the part of it that I love. And we're fortunate that we have a lot of deal work coming our way. So, you know, as an artist, you have to understand that a personal manager, for example, fills a very defined role. Business manager, CEO, cheerleader, sometimes babysitter. And the lawyer does too, to a certain respect, but each of the players in the team are very important in their own right, and it's important to use them as checks and balances against one another. It's important that the manager not insist that you use any particular lawyer that may be in his pocket and may not have your best interest at heart. It's important to sort of get a good independent business manager that's not necessarily only concerned about the personal manager. And I think in order to do that, you have to be educated about business generally. You have to educate yourself about what these various intermediaries do and the roles they play as gatekeepers and otherwise. And so you can't sort of stick your head in a black creative box and think, well, I'll let the team take care of it. You will get rolled over by everybody else and maybe some folks on your team if you don't sort of have your eyes open about that. So I think those are my initial thoughts about the team, building the team.
Thank you. Rasheed.
Hi, Rasheed. Great thoughts. I mean, Lisa covered a lot because she covered it all. But my name is Rasheed. I'm with SunPlus. Part of my job is helping to implement long-term financial strategies for singers, songwriters, producers. We work with everyone from record label executives to the actual business managers to entertainment attorneys. And we pretty much try to design a one-stop shop for our clients. You know, one of the more famous shows out there on the air right now is VH1. And when people say, what do you do? I say, I try to keep my clients off of VH1. Because it's just one of those shows, but the horror stories that you see on there are very, very real. And the reason why those horror stories are so prevalent is truly because of the whole concept of building a team. You have to have individuals that you trust. You have to have individuals that you know, you may want to employ friends colleagues and family members and things of that nature. But you really have to, you know, find people that are good at what they do, the best at what they do. And not only that, you want to make sure that, you know, whoever that person is the right size and the right fit for you. You know, sometimes I can't tell you how many times I've heard as a beginning artist, someone say, hey, you know, I have a business manager, and, you know, he represents, you know, glorious writing. And I go, man, I just don't know if that's the business manager for you as a beginning artist because you may get lost in the shuffle. So, you know, just kind of making sure that you're right size. The ability to let the circle be independent, let your attorney, you know, stand on its own, let your business manager stand on your own, let your banker stand on its own, you know, kind of let all of those different challenge yourself. That's basically it.
Thank you.
Some of you are my students, so I hope this is not redundant, but I'm an artist, a songwriter, a producer, have a label, produce concerts, so I'm in management. I've done a lot of things as well as also in some in banking as well too. And so I have kind of a weird cross pollinated view of the music business. I really would describe it. One of the things I want to do here at UGA, which me and David already discussed, is actually create a new model for the music business, because there's a lot of functions right now that the record label used to do, but since the big fire hose of recorded music sort of sales money has dwindled a lot. Managers and artists have picked up a lot of the responsibilities. So I don't think this model that's based around a really traditional record label works anymore. And I see something like artist-owned labels with what were record labels becoming essentially distributors only, or manager-based labels. I want to take the business apart and put it together in a different way. Pull this player from over here, this player from over here, put them in different groups that make more sense. It's interesting that you're from the banking side of things, because that is actually the only part of the business that actually isn't figured out without a record label. The only thing really doing the banking, financing part of the music business is record labels right now. But you have new things coming up like Kickstarter and other things like that. And I think we need to take everything apart and look at it differently.
Thank you. And Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I apologize first for showing up a couple of minutes late. I'm Jonathan Leonard. I am an entertainment attorney based in Atlanta, and have had the wonderful opportunity to work with Lisa in doing deals, and also serve on teams with Rasheed. We share some of the same clients, and just get an opportunity to meet David and Deborah. So nice meeting you all. Just kind of initial thoughts on the team. I mean, it's very critical in putting together that team, and some of the first things I really think about, and Rasheed can probably chime in on this, but one of the critical elements of putting together a team, you obviously have your individual representatives, being your attorney, your business manager, your personal manager, and in some instances you have other people that are a part of that team, but that might not wear those particular hats. But it's real critical that everyone kind of stays in their lane and they coordinate and they work together. Because what you find, one of the biggest challenges that I see from time to time is you get managers who, for whatever reason, they will step outside of their lanes and they start to do things that they may not be trained to do or just shouldn't be doing, and which can create very serious problems for the client. And so, whatever team you put together, obviously you want, and it goes without being said, you want to get people who know what they're doing. That's probably sounds a little funny coming from me, in that my first couple of clients, I did not know what I was doing actually, and so I that ruled when he chose me. But we were able to figure it out. But you want to find qualified people for the job that you're hiring for. You want to make sure that they are competent, that they have integrity, and that they have your best interest at heart. Because you can be very competent, you can be very competent, but if you don't have the integrity, if you don't have the client's best interest at heart, then the talent can be in a very bad position. And I see that oftentimes. But you want that team to work together. I've seen so many teams working against one another, managers working against attorneys, business managers working against everyone. I've seen some where you might have two working together and the other on some other page. And that, at the end of the day, it defeats the purpose for which you've been hired, and that is to serve the best interest of the talent. And it's in making certain decisions, it may seem as if a particular decision may not serve an attorney's best interest, or serve a business manager's best interest, or serve a banker's best interest. Rasheed might have a client who wants to purchase a home, and for whatever reason, it may not be the best time for that client to purchase a home. And so while Rasheed might get some benefit from a client doing a mortgage at his bank, it might not be the right time for the client to do that. And so that might be perceived at times as somewhat of a conflict. But if you're looking at the best interest of the client, what the banker says is really not the right thing to do at this time. We can do it for you, but you need to hold off and go another direction at this point. There are a number of different instances where you might be faced with situations where you feel like, I know that there have been times when there have been deals on the table for my clients that I felt like I get paid if that deal closes, but it's not necessarily the best deal. It's not necessarily the best thing for them. Just happened to me just a few days ago. And we didn't do the deal because it wasn't the right deal for the client. But I would have made money then, but at the same time, I feel in my heart, we'll get the right deal done down the road, and then I will make money. And so it's really critical that you have representatives that are working together for the common good of the talent. And I oftentimes just see that that's not happening. But again, I've had the great fortune of working with Rasheed, with certain clients. I know that we've had great chemistry in the things that we've done. We've been able to work together. We pick up the phone and call one another when issues come up that we need to deal with. But it's not happening in a lot of cases, and it's hurting the talent. But you have to be, very objective when you're making those decisions too. Normally I would say that clients tend to come to you with a manager. Oftentimes they do. They normally will have a manager maybe before they have anything else. That decision to hire that manager, you never know what necessarily was the reason that they chose to hire a particular manager. But oftentimes it's some relationship that existed already. Sometimes it's out of them having become acquainted through the business, which I think is a good thing. Just hiring your best friend in and of itself is not a good thing. Your best friend is a good manager, understands the business, understands what Dave was alluding to, how the business is changing, and how you need to understand how it's changing and how that can benefit the talent. Then that's a good thing. But a lot of decisions are being made otherwise, and so you have to be objective. You have to be honest with yourself about what's the best decision to make. And like I said, I was fortunate when I got started. I got into the business without really knowing very much about the actual technical issues associated with the business, and I fortunately was able to navigate it and be resourceful and learn it, and now feel very adept at it, but in the beginning, I really didn't, and if talent went through the process that I might tell talent to go through now, they might not have hired me back then. So it's certainly something that it's important to talk to people. It's important to find out their experiences with certain representatives. Sometimes it's difficult too, because I can say, you can probably ask a lot of people in the business about me, depending upon who you ask, you might hear something good, you might hear something bad. And some of that stuff comes out as a result of maybe somebody not getting what they wanted to get when they were dealing with me. And I don't apologize for any of that. That's just the business. That's just what it is. It's a high stakes game, and because of that, a lot of times people walk away from the table not being happy, and then they might end up voicing their negative opinions about you because they did not end up where they wanted to end up. And so you have to sift through all of that. It's not easy, but you have to sift through that to understand really, what's real and what's not. But I think, again, being honest with yourself, talking to people, sifting through all the information, there's enough out there to be able to find the right fit for you.
Thank you. Well, now I want to see if we can get a little bit more practical, because you threw out some concepts up there. And I'm going to ask you to go back into your memories of dealing with the clients and stuff. And so, you've talked a lot about find people who are competent, who are qualified, who are good. What does that mean? What questions should musicians and people in the industry be asking of these team members?
Well, I think in many respects, it is to some extent dictated by where an artist is in their career. It is true that not every artist immediately needs a business manager, although having an artist be conscientious about financial issues and other things like that. And obviously a business manager is a very important role. But if you're not playing it out and you're not selling anything and no money's coming in, 5% of nothing is nothing. So I think that in terms of asking specific questions, well, with respect to your lawyer, I think it's obvious. If you are engaging an attorney to do your record deal or your distribution deal or a licensing deal, an endorsement deal, anything like that, you want to ask them sort of what they've done before, and do they practice in the space, maybe get some referrals. I think those things are sort of self-explanatory. With respect to your personal manager, and Jonathan, I'd love to hear your perspective about this. I think in many respects it depends on the genre your client is in, because an A-level manager in the hip-hop world may not be the most effective advocate for my country artist or my gospel client or my sort of rock and roll Americana artist. And so it depends sort of what your client's end game is. And if you have a client that wants to make records on a band label and play out occasionally, he doesn't really care about getting the record deal or touring worldwide, then that suggests maybe a different path. And so I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all for every artist or every band or every performer. I think it's dictated by that artist's sort of artistic goals and mission and personality. I think that a personal manager and a lawyer and a business manager are sort of the three chief components of the team. I think many artists will obviously need a booking agent, but at a certain level in one's career, they will need a tour manager and lots of other roles filled that, the artist that's sort of
And a banker.
in a banker, of course. When I say business manager, I really mean like a financial guru like yourself, banker. Right? I'm using that term loosely.
Actually, we don't want you to feel left out.
No, I was including you. I was assuming that you. I was including you.
It's a critical piece.
Yeah, it really is, exactly. And I think too that as a lawyer, I'm sure Jonathan agrees with this, I feel like we do need to do a lot of preventative medicine. So helping our clients understand where the money is, where it's not, making sure they're making wise investments, because too often you see them blow through cash, and it's sort of like the TLC behind the music story where they sold 8 million records and they said we never saw a penny, and I don't know if they got bad advice or they just didn't understand the concept of recoupment. But I think that to answer your question, it really depends on where the artist is, what genre they're playing in. And you know, the truth is that we have some A-level artists managers that may not have the time or the ability to sort of give our young artists any attention. Maybe that's not the right manager at this time. But when we sign to Interscope, suddenly we may need a different caliber of manager. So I think it's a combination of factors. There's not one formula. Jonathan, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I agree fully with respect to the management piece and that there are certainly managers that are more entrenched in certain genres than others. There are attorneys that are also entrenched in certain areas more than others. And so it's important to make sure that you are dealing with, now, the economics are very similar in the areas that I don't have. If somebody came to me with a country artist and they said, hey, look, I'm looking for a country, a record deal in Nashville, and they wanted me to pick up the phone and call people in Nashville to try to get a deal, I wouldn't know. I grew up, born and raised, grew up in Nashville, but I wouldn't know who to call there to say, you know, hey, look, I got this artist that, you know, is looking for a deal. And after you call me and you say, hey, look, I'm a songwriter, I write, you know, primarily like pop music and I do some R&B, then I can pick up the phone and pretty much call any of the players that are in that area, and you know, if I've got something that is talent, then we can get something going. So it really does depend on where their ties lie. When it comes down to actually doing the deal, though, from an attorney standpoint, it all works the same. Now, the numbers might be different a little bit, but from a functional standpoint, operational standpoint, those things, the deals look the same. So I feel comfortable doing a deal for any country artist, although if they're at the beginning of their career and they're looking for an end, they're looking for a door to get open based upon me calling and making a phone call and saying, hey, if they can walk in that door, then that would be, you know, an indirect route. I might have to call somebody in LA and say, hey, look, who's your country contact to do that? But yeah, you have to take those things into consideration. Management is critical. Cost of the digital age now and how things are changing and the way artists are being broken. It's critical that managers understand what's necessary for an artist to get a look now, to get attention and start to build their brand. And if you get an artist that comes to you and they've got a manager and they say, hey, look, I got this great music, but then if I Google them and I don't see anything, then the manager's not doing what they're supposed to do, because you have to actually create a presence for artists nowadays. That happens. You can get, I'm not saying you can't get a record deal without having some kind of online presence, but I promise you, if I pick up the phone and I call one of my contacts at a label, or not necessarily a publisher, but at a label, and I tell them about an artist, before I finish telling them, they're Googling the artist's name. And if they don't see anything, that's the first strike. And so you got to question your manager if you haven't started to build that aspect of it. Here in 2011, now 10 years ago maybe not, but today it has to be built that way. And so you got the wrong manager if they don't understand that and they're not trying to make ways for you in that way. If you're in a certain genre of music and you're a singer-songwriter, you're not actually playing gigs, and you don't have shows in the city and in the places that people are going to be going to hear that kind of music, and you got a manager, then you might want to think about getting another manager. Just being honest, it really requires people that understand the times, understand the business. And those things may change over your career too, because you start to evolve and you turn into different things. And the person that may be by your side right at the beginning for whatever reason, may not be there down the road because they hit a ceiling with them if they're not also evolving and growing with you from a standpoint of the kind of services that they're providing and the things that they're
And
doing.
Jonathan, let me piggyback off of that and ask David specifically, because you've been talking about, the industry is changing. And so as this industry changes, are there new members to the team or new skills for members to have? Jonathan mentioned about, knowing about social networking, being able to be accessible in Google. But do you see, as you say, you need to change it?
I think I know and I'm always like playing the role of the gadfly. I don't mean to do that, or the pessimistic one, but okay. But to me, there's a really simple calculation that's going on here, where since record sales have gone down so much, everything relies more on live music. And I don't know if any of you took economics, but live music is a non-scalable economic activity. And selling CDs and publishing is a scalable activity. So there's going to be a lot less money and a lot more work involved in everything as it goes forward. Okay? If you're going to rely on playing shows and generating more revenue that way, basically, when you look at the music business, it's more of a blue-collar business. It leans that way. There will still be your big mega stars and stuff like that. There's a lot more actual kinds of work. So in my experience, and then also labels, like for instance, I think about my record label has less people working for them than my band does. And it's not a major label, but it's a very big independent. It's been around for almost 100 years. So I say this, the first person you need on your team that you cannot do without is having an accountant. The second person that you need on your team, and I have to think about this, I'm still going to go back and forth on this a little bit, but I would say the second person is a publicist. Okay? And there's independent publicists, you no longer need a record label publicist. And then probably the third person on the list is whoever. I would put the record label, manager, agent, everything after that. Because the first thing you have to do is essentially create your presence and create your star, at least on some local, regional, or small level. You have to first become the star in some way. The record label cannot do that. And actually, if you look at what record labels are doing right now, they're really relying on producers, sort of production, recording studio, on companies, songwriters, and stuff like that to really develop their artists now. And to get into that part of essentially the production chain, the food chain or something like that, it's really kind of less important to have a manager or a record label. That's actually the path into a record deal. And then I would question if you actually really need a record label or do you need a distributor once you get working. So that's what I think about a lot.
So you don't see the manager.
I'm talking about like this year.
Right.
I mean, I understand historically, but.
Well, but I mean, I'm talking
Oh, I
about
think
this
the manager is
year.
very important. This is like a triage.
Right.
But I mean, like, okay, how do you have basically no money? How do you
Right.
start?
Well, I think when you, oftentimes clients will come to me, and I think we probably have to break it down too, in the type of talent. Is it a songwriter? Is it solely an artist? Is it solely, a producer? And if you say, if it's a songwriter, then I say, yeah, probably you don't necessarily need a manager. If you're an artist and you're really trying to create a brand, and which sounds to me like what you were describing when you said doing shows, and I don't think you used that term, but it sounds like you're saying doing shows and actually starting to kind of gig and create your brand. Then I think you've got a smart manager and a person that understands that can help an artist a lot, because artists will oftentimes come to me and unbelievably talented and creative, but not necessarily strategic. And that strategy is important, and I think if you've got a good manager, then they can help an artist who is unbelievably creative, but is not necessarily thinking about the strategy when it comes to becoming kind of a household name in a region first, in kind of an area first, maybe here on campus first, and then expanding beyond that. There's some strategy to that, and I think managers should be strategists, and they should be helping you make those moves while you're creating, because artists, like they create. You guys go and you create, and you're not always necessarily thinking. Now, I met some great artists that are great strategists too, but that's not always the case. Some of them don't want to be that. So I think the management piece, if you've got somebody who's got a good strategic mind, they can be really helpful in the early stages.
Now, Rasheed, I want to get you in there because you've been really quiet. We want to hear from the mayor because you have money.
That's what you're saying. I can kind of follow what David's saying a little bit. David, Professor. But I can kind of follow what he said because you talked about the element of making some noise for yourself before you go to the next level. And for me, it's amazing. I mean, this is Atlanta. This is this is Bible Belt. This is everybody can sing. Everybody has talent. I mean, you want to find a good singer, just go to church or something. I mean, that person's there, but is that the person that can perform? Is that the person that can captivate the audience? That's sort of what you're looking at. So if I have a client that walks in, I'm going to want to find out, well, kind of tell me what you have around you, what buzz is around you, like what business manager do you have. Depending on what names they're dropping, I'm looking at that person and I'm going, because the music industry is big, but it's also very, very small. And you know who some of the main players are, and if you don't know who the main players are, you can trail back and connect some dots toward that person. So I generally, it's almost like we were talking earlier about, when you talk about building this team, you look at the music industry as a whole, you look at it from the record label side, and then you drill down to the personal person, and you talk about the management of that person. It's interesting, I went through a program called Leadership Music. It's an alumni organization that about 1,000 applicants from the music industry in different walks of the music industry apply a year, they only accept 50 applicants a year. But in this room, there are 50 industry leaders, there are bankers in the room, there are attorneys in the room, there are publishers in the room, there are radio programmers. The goal of the 50 is to try to put together 50 different individuals together to talk about what does the model even look like? Because the thing about it is the model is really all about people just sharing, people just crossing the lines and beginning to talk. The publishers are on their side, the radio guys are on their side, and there's a difference between the mega radio stations and the local programmers and gospel radio. And it's just all very different. But then you look at that model and you say, guys, let's cross the lines and let's begin to talk and let's begin to have dialogue. Same thing needs to happen with your team. We talked about everything as far as vetting them and finding out what their credentials are, what clients they represent. But there's one other basic thing that's just the gut. It's just how does it feel? At the end of the day, we all have our credentials and we all do a great job of what we do, but I like to think that we also say we're in a relationship business. At the end of the day, we have a client that everybody's running after. You can't run after them with, hey, this is what I do. They're not trying to hear. It's all about the feeling and the warm and fuzzy and how you're making them feel. It works that way with the PROs. They will tell you that's a relationship business. It's how that writer feels. That's what keeps them in CSAC and SAC beyond. So it's just my 2 cents.
We have just a few minutes left, but I want to ask you guys to briefly answer this question because you allude to the fact that our artists are at different points in their career. Some of them are emerging, some of them are in careers, some of them are established. And, there might be points where they have to change a team member. What are some tips about changing a team member?
There's a long tradition in the touring music business is that you do it at breakfast when you fire somebody. I don't know why that is, but I never really thought about that. But I guess you just call the person and make it up. say, hey, get your stuff, no, breakfast and stuff, get your stuff to the lobby, just do a quick breakfast, but that's what we do. It'll be fine.
She was saying, this is a relationship business.
Well, maybe it's just like pulling out
breakfast.
the Band-Aid off of us. It's just like, get it done at the start of the day. I don't know, I haven't looked on that.
I think
That's
John
funny
did,
that I just thought.
something he wants to say.
So never go to a breakfast meeting, okay? That's what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, you see it all the time. There's a lot of turnover in representatives, and I think talent should, like any other business, have an evaluation process, a continuing evaluation process of all of their representatives and hold them all accountable. I see so many of our clients that don't hold their representatives accountable, and if they did, they'd be changing a lot more. Oftentimes they change not for the right reasons, they change because somebody's gotten in their ear and told them something made them feel good that day, kind of like what Rasheed was saying, and then, it's selling a bill of goods, and then they just hop over and move over thinking that that's going to be the key to their success. And I always say that really the success comes from the talent, period. I don't make any of them successful. I help them maneuver, and I think everybody here would agree that we help them navigate the business. But I have never written a song. I have, never made a beat. I've never sang a song, none of those things. So I don't take credit, but you find representatives who will take credit for the talent of the artist. It's amazing. But if talent would institute some type of process for evaluating all of their people and making sure that they hold them accountable. I've actually told my clients that they need to hold me accountable. It makes me better. It makes me a better representative. If I'm sitting there and you're not telling me when I have done something that they don't agree with or I've done less than a good job on something, then I don't know how to go and correct that. I don't know how to pay attention to that. But talent tends not to do that. They need to act more like businesses in evaluating their representatives and then making decisions that way, because I think it would help them a great deal. It's a tough thing, because you do become like family with a lot of your clients. It's a very close relationship. I've been very fortunate to have had. I've been doing this for about 17 years now. I've had certain clients. The duration, I don't even remember not knowing them. And it would be very strange to have that kind of conversation with them. But it's just a part of business. If I am in their position and I have at stake my livelihood and everything that I've invested my life into, then I'm going to hold them accountable just like the people that work for me I hold accountable. So that's what they need to do. Most of them don't. They make decisions based upon, who called them at some award show and then whisked them off to some, suite and told them something great, and then they start to tell them how much greater they could be if they were dealing with them. And that's how those decisions are made. That's not a good way to do it, but unfortunately that's a lot of what's happening.
I think that's right. I think there's a very apt analogy to the marriage, because ending these relationships are like divorces. And so I think if you, the entertainment attorney, has done a good job, you understand very well how this is going to go down, because you would have contracted for it. I mean, you understand you've got the right sunset clause in place with the manager, et cetera. So I think it's a different discussion with a lawyer, certainly. But if you've done your job as an attorney, then terminating the relationship with the business manager or the personal manager, the booking agent, you already understand, not necessarily how emotions are going to go, but legally how it's going to go. That should sort of be something that you're discussing with the client on the front end. But it is very difficult business, and I think you see less loyalty today. And Jonathan's exactly right. People will smoke up your client's ass, excuse me, sorry, David. And then, it's just unfortunate. But I think what you realize is that, as a lawyer at least, I'm sure it's the same for you, Rasheed as a banker, if you have integrity and you do a good job with clients, then you are going to be fortunate to have one of these long-lasting relationships. And then those clients send you clients. So if you lose that apple at the end of the day, it's good business.
And just to follow with this, you know, I've been in this business for 15 years, and I've been fired several times. I've been rehired back by the same people. But I guess the part of it is just not being an enabler as a business manager is part of it too. You know, it's somebody coming up to you and you are good at what you do, but you're saying to them, you know, what you're asking me to do, I'm not going to do it. And they say, well, I know somebody else that do it for me. You have to be willing, as a person, like I said, a person of integrity and high morals, you have to be willing to let whatever they're trying to do just walk and, you know, just have it come back later on.
Thank you. Well, we have 5 minutes left. I'd like to take a couple of questions. Anybody have questions in the audience? Yes.
Pretty general question, I guess, for Lisa, Jonathan. What really defines an entertainment lawyer? Like, for you guys got into law or decided you want to be lawyers. Did you start off saying, I want to be an entertainment lawyer? Are all lawyers like intellectual property focused? Just kind of always wondered that, pretty much how you guys got into where you are today.
All right, well, I actually never planned to be an entertainment attorney, or I really more so refer to myself as a music attorney, because that's probably 95% of the type of deals I do. When I was in law school, I went to Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. They had, I don't think we even had an intellectual property course there. Definitely didn't have the entertainment law course. I really just took courses that, you know, supported what I felt like I wanted to do when I got out, and that wasn't music. I finished law school. I went to undergrad in Atlanta, moved back to Atlanta, started practicing, just hung my shoe out after I passed the bar, and then a friend of mine who worked at the Face Records, she was an attorney in business affairs, referred a couple songwriters to me that were writing a lot of the R&B stuff for production company Organized Noise, and that's kind of how I fell into it. It really just was by chance, and then I had to, like I said, I didn't know anything when I did my first deal. The first deal I did that I considered to be real was a publishing deal for the guy that wrote the song Waterfalls for TLC. You all might be too young to even, some of you might to remember that song. That's kind of crazy that long ago. But he wrote that song, and it was a really big song, and the guy, you know, he got referred to me, things, sat down, talked to me. Fortunately, the weekend before, I spent all weekend trying to figure out what music publishing was, to have a fairly decent conversation with him about what the issues were. He didn't ask me any of the questions or do any of the things that we're talking about here. Thank God. And so he hired me, and I still represent him today. And that's kind of how I got into it. And then I really started to learn the business. It's not rocket science work. It's really not. People will lead you to believe that it is. It's not. It's really being detailed, being diligent, having a good kind of bedside manner with your clients, and having some integrity and being committed to doing a good job. And then that's kind of how I got into it. And then I really started to learn the substantive stuff as it went on. It's really a long story though, but you know, maybe I'll go back another time and tell you about that long story.
Mine, just briefly, I was very similar to Jonathan. And next time, because we've gotten this question a million times sitting on the same thing,
Yeah.
I'm going to answer for you and you answer for me.
Okay.
Because I know your story. You know, I mean, I went to Virginia for law school, and I did take an entertainment class. But for personal reasons, I was coming back to Atlanta. I thought, maybe LA or New York's in my future someday. But I guess, and I didn't take an IP class, which is funny because, of course, that's what we do day in and day out. A lot of entertainment attorneys, so you can't really practice entertainment law without understanding copyright and trademark work. But my first day at a big firm in Atlanta, I had this partner come up to me and he said, I hear you have an interest in entertainment. Do you want to be my entertainment associate? And I started doing these deals. And very fortunately, he was a great lawyer who sort of had this unique practice unrelated to the other things that we were doing at the firm. And he was a great mentor for me. So I think if you ask most people that do it day in and day out, did you plan on being a music lawyer? No. And the truth is we all do different things. I mean, Jonathan and I, for example, do much of the same things, and many things are very different. And so I do a lot of film and television work, book publishing, and some lawyers like to get the deal and be in the financial piece of it, putting the money together, and others. So there's lots of things you can do within that space. The short answer is no. Nobody planned it. We all just get here somehow. our very circuitous routes.
Well, I want to thank our panelists. I think one thing that we can take away from here is that since each artist and band is very unique, the requirements for those teams are also going to be very unique and specific to the artist's circumstance. And so thank you so much for being here. And we hope you guys will stay and enjoy the other